biggest day of the year at Charlestown Races coming up Friday, August 28th. A massive, there's a word I don't use much, a massive 13 race program. First post 5 o'clock, last post estimated 11:25. I'm telling you here, I'm taking the over. If the over under is midnight for that last race to go off, I'll take the over. I think I'll win that one. However, the Charlestown Classic, Grade 2, $1 million Charlestown Classic, 11th race of the 13, estimated post 1025. Grade 2 Charlestown Oaks, $750,000, 3-year-old fillies going 7/8 of a mile. That is the 10th race. It's a nice run of open stakes, ending with those two. Starts with the pink ribbon. That's, I think, $300,000 for fillies and mares going 7/8. Then the Robert Hilton Memorial for 3-year-olds. That's, I think, $500,000, also going 7/8. A lot of local representation on the card. A lot of interesting things happening on the card. This is it's a fun card. Here to help us break this all down, going to be Paul Espinosa. He's the track announcer and morning line maker at Charlestown Races. He's coming up momentarily here on Midlantic Racing Today. My name's Frank Vespi. This is Midlantic Racing Today, powered by the Racing Biz, the racingbiz.com. Today's episode, Charlestown Races Today, is presented by our friends at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. Please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it when you do that. We love those 5-star ratings that we've been getting. We love any feedback we receive, and we love it when you follow us or subscribe. So please do those things. We really appreciate it very, very much. You can do that, by the way, anywhere you get your podcasts: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, wherever. We're available all those places. So track us down, Midlantic Racing Today. All right. No further ado. Here's Paul Espinosa. Paul, good to see you as always. We're seeing you this week, though. It's a big week. We're glad to get you on Tuesday because I'm not sure you're going to have any more time after this.
It's definitely going to be the one busy time of the year for sure. I shouldn't say the one busy time because Breeders' Classic is too. But like we talked about before, all those horses are here. You know all those horses. And so it's there's a little bit more predictability to it. We've also done that, going to be 40 years now, whereas, this is just a mere 18th renewal of the Charlestown Classic. So, but yes, it is definitely a busy week but a fun one nonetheless.
Is it 18th already? Wow. I remember when this race came into being and everyone said, wow, $1 million race at Charlestown. How'd that happen? And look at that. So Charlestown Classic, Charlestown Oaks, both grade 2 events top the card, but got a bunch of other stakes too. The Shannondoa gets a grade 1 placed horse in it. We see Duncan, Idaho back at it. Pink Ribbon, what an interesting race that is. And then, of course, the Hilton. I feel like Ryan's run might be up against it a little bit in the Hilton if everybody shows.
I would concur. Speed figure wise, he didn't match up as favorably as I was thinking that he might. It's one of those things where obviously you don't know who's showing up. Whenever you're kind of forecasting this, and I would say that again, Solitude dude kind of seems to tower over that field. He's going to be one of the bigger wild cards on the entire card, though, because he's cross-entered up in the Allen Jerkins. That's a 6-horse field. Of the 6 horses, 2 of them are 30-1 on the morning line. It's a grade 1. It's Saratoga. It's going to be tough. It's like, you're even money in our race for $500,000, or you're basically signing up for hopefully grade 1 placing against Englishmen. And, who knows what happens. Obviously you have to run the races still, but if he shows up, he's one of the more likely winners on the card. If he doesn't show up, then that sort of welcomes a couple of more shooters into that race. And so definitely going to be something that we're following in the lead up to Friday for sure.
Let's a couple of things we want to touch on here. First off, tell us the pick 6 mandatory payout Friday. Is that correct?
You got it. It'll cover the last 6 races on the card, starting with the Misty, Bennett, pink ribbon in race 8. Of course, we did not offer pick 6 wagering all last week. We won't offer it on Thursday. And so the jackpot will be unfrozen on Friday. And so again, $96,000 plus of money that cannot beat you already in the pool, and would anticipate it potentially, exceeding $750,000. Again, that's just an estimate based on past, iterations of this wager. Whenever we have a payout around this amount, we've definitely gotten there before. You'd hope that on Charlestown Classic night, you'd be able to add a little bit more, maybe even to that. But very competitive sequence, I feel like, and but yet at the same time, I think that there are places where horse players can certainly lean in. They can narrow down and potentially put together an economically friendly ticket and have a chance at maybe a nice little juiced payday because of that carryover being forced out of over $96,000.
What is the takeout on that?
Just
since it's
low
mandatory
12%.
Now?
12%. Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Just 12%. Yeah. That's Eric Zimney back in the day named it the Charlestown 612, 6 being the number of winners and 12 being the low takeout. And so, unlike some tracks that do, they will jack up the takeout on days where there's either a carryover or mandatory. We don't do that. We just keep it at the 12% rate. And so again, definitely a scenario where most always it ends up being a positive equity situation where there ends up being more returned to the bettors than what was bet in. And so just because of that carryover and the effect that the kind of offsets the takeout. And so, definitely something that our horse player friends should look to get involved with.
Yeah, certainly. We here at Midlantic Racing Today love low takeout. So the mandatory payout makes that an intriguing thing to take a look at. Couple storylines we want to touch on here. I think the first one could be a pretty good night for the Walters brothers.
I'd say so. I made at a premium. It was definitely, I was going back and forth between Love Your Neighbor for Mike Stidham and at a premium for David Walters on who to make the favorite. Outside post and just the general resume of Love Your Neighbor, I felt like I had to go that direction. She's no slouch, clearly, either, but neither is at a premium. And so, again, I think that clearly her connections brimming with confidence as they should be. Undefeated filly, getting the test of her young career thus far. And then, Barbadian Runner, I felt like he was a horse that really stacked up pretty favorably from a speed figure standpoint versus some of his rivals, and as we've talked about before, in a race where you have Skippy and Banishing, who are both known to throw in the occasional clunker, Barbadian Runner is not. 12 straight in the 12 straight in the exacta. He is just as honest as the day is long. And so, he's, I think, in it with a very live shot. I think I made him the second choice on the morning line in what turned out to be one of the deeper, more contentious Charlestown Classics that I can remember.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting group of horses. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a minute. I do want to just touch on a couple other things. So, a lot of West Virginia breds on the card, including in the big races. At a premium, Ryan's Run in the Hilton, Xcellent Start here. Serenade Me. Interesting. It feels like more than previous years. You got the two sort of main ones at a premium, Ryan's Run, but that there are a couple others, it seems different.
I would concur. I think that there are definitely some folks out there that are more willing to just take a shot in in this day and age too, where races around the country, they struggle to get these big fields. Some folks will say, "Well, don't mind if I do," and so again, that weird theory of you actually run your horses to make money. It's as opposed to working them 5-6 times between races before they try to get their payday. So a little different mindset, I'd imagine, here for some folks. You touched on it, a couple of really live shots, a couple of real long shots, but nonetheless, happy to see them in here. And again, adds another layer to it. It's hometown hopefuls are always make things a lot of fun. And so certainly wishing all of them safe trips and the best of luck on Friday.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Charlestown being a bull ring track, being, a lot of these races are going to be at night. That adds variables for the shippers. We had David Walters on this show last week, and he was saying, he thinks it's a real advantage to be here. And he was thinking a horse like Barbadian Runner. He said, I'd make him a player in that race without even knowing who's coming, just because he's already run really well here.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've touched about this. It's like anytime you are adding a lot of variables to a lot of horses in this race, and anytime you can eliminate one or two of those variables, I think you certainly have to take advantage of that. And whether that's riders that have experience over the bull ring, or just riders that have experience in general on the horse, that they know the horse, past success, in this race, I think certainly key. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that we've touched on this as well before. There's the common refrain of, "Oh, we hate to see our purse money going to these out of town outfits," and it's like, or you can think about it from the standpoint of like, not woe is me, and say, hey, I have an advantage. If I have a really good horse in my backyard that I can just walk over for these really big purses, and know that there are probably some people that have some question marks about their horses as to, whether it is the lights, whether it is the tight turns, you name it. You come into it where you can kind of have the deck stacked in your favor, and it's one of the only chances that you'll have to have that, because you're not going to have that if you ship up the road to Maryland or to Colonial or to New York. And so it is the one chance to run for big money against big horses and kind of have at least a little bit of an advantage, you'd hope, over some of your competition.
Yeah, and we've seen big horses come to Charles Town and either, groupie doll, wait too long to make the move and come up a little bit short, or a commentator get to the third turn and say, wait a minute, there's another one of these. And, so we've seen these big horses come, and you get a horse like Skippy who just occasionally doesn't fire, but we know he can win over the strip. But we've seen horses come and either with the ride or the circumstances just not deliver. So if you got a horse that can deliver, you may as well take your swing here, right?
100%. And there's that extra turn is just an extra chance for something to potentially not go to plan. And so, I kind of always feel like, typically, we don't run a lot of 3-turn races here. But I kind of feel like, and this is probably a good principle to follow, regardless of what track you're at, but I feel like you can lose ground around one turn. I feel like you need to save ground around at least one of the 2 turns, and in the Charles Town Classic, it's probably better to do it around 2 of the 3. And so again, when you add that third turn, and the potential to have to cover more ground again, if you just are kind of stuck from an outside post, which oddly enough, the 3 morning line favorites all breaking from the 3 outside post positions, Banishing from the 8, Barbadian Runner from the 9, and Skippy from the 10, you do add another element to have to try to factor in. And so, yeah, I think that it, if anything, it certainly adds another layer to the excitement on the night.
Yeah. And as a rider, I feel like if you've got a horse if you're trying to close, you need to start moving when they hit the backstretch, because you got a turn in front of you, then a very short stretch. And I remember I owned a piece of a horse years ago that was a closer, and I want to say it was Larry Reynolds rode him a bunch of times. And it's like when they hit the backstretch, he'd start to move, and he won a bunch of races doing that. Like you can't wait.
Yeah. I think about the obviously the polar opposite being the Belmont Stakes and just racing at Belmont in general. And you hear the saying, like, wait. And then when you think you've waited long enough, wait some more. And that's right. The absolute opposite, because like you said, when you're turning onto the backstretch in this 1.125 race, you're less than halfway home, or less than halfway, remaining in that race, less than a half mile to go. And so, yeah, you've got to start making moves. And that's what Banishing did. I do remember my call a little bit from last year, because I love alliteration, spoiler alert. But I said Banishing with a backstretch blitz. And so that was what ended up being the winning move. And he got the jump on a horse like Willy D's. And that ended up being.
You're listening to Frank Vespi and Charles Town track announcer Paul Espinosa on Midlantic Racing Today, powered by the Racing Biz and presented by Hollywood Casino at Charles Town Races.
Banishing in the 8. These are 3 of the you'd expect to be players in this race. How you have a very short run of the first turn there. And I feel like you need the jockey to be very decisive out of the gate. You got to commit one way or the other. You're either going or you're taking back, because if you don't commit one way or the other, you're going to be hung out 6 wide on the turn. So how much do you hold that against them in your handicapping?
I definitely don't make it a plus. I feel like in this race again, I feel like there's either 7 furlongs, but more so the 4.5 furlong races. I actually kind of think that you can be advantaged by being outside because there is such a long run into the first turn.
Sure.
But that is, like you said, not the case for this. And talking to Henry Walters ahead of this race, he talked about Barbadian Runner. He normally breaks really well, but being outside, that can kind of be a blessing and a curse. Like if everybody else breaks well too, you're in danger of being caught wide, or if you break slowly, you're also in danger of being caught out there. So it's like you're really kind of at the mercy of what everybody does to your inside, because it's going to be kind of bunched up here. It's also not a race where I feel like there's a ton of like confirmed burner tearaway speed types. I mean, last year I felt like Willy D's was supposed to go to the front, and it seems like in every race but the Classic, he's been forwardly placed. And so, I would think that being drawn inside with, a very drop out the back type of horse to his inside in Gigante, I would think Ricardo Santana would have to be on the engine this year. But again, what do I know? You have full screen adding blinkers for Safi, but, Skippy in his 2 Classic wins, they've been
went right to the front.
Exactly. And then conversely, in the Pegasus this year, he came from out of it. So it's like he's a versatile horse, but I don't think you want that trip here at Charles Town. Prince of Power for David Jacobson, again, he's indicated that he will be running here. He's cross-entered in the Forego, but again, we're expecting to get him here. Prince of Power could be a speed type to maybe, be a nuisance to the pace setters in the race. Bullard is prominent. Dragoon Guard definitely has speed. I would expect him to be up there. And then you have Skippy from the outside and Barbadian Runner, who doesn't want to drop out the back in these 1 1/8 races. So it is intriguing, and I think that it does. You would very much have preferred to have been inside if you're any of those outside 3. Banishing probably the least inconvenience because he's shown that he can close here at Charles Town and that he doesn't mind getting that trip. But for Barbadian Runner and Skippy, going to be some anxious moments in that first 12 seconds of this race for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing I do think, Barbadian Runner's 2 defeats this year have come glacial pace in front of him, very slow pace, and he's tactical, but he's really, I think, more of a mid-pack kind of make a run horse than he is a stalk and, be up close, press the pace horse. I think I don't know about the trip from the far outside, but I do think there's enough speed in here that he probably, if he can figure out a way to save some ground, he can get a trip that he wants.
That would certainly be the hope. I know that in that conversation with Henry Walters, he kind of said that hopefully within 10 strides he's able to kind of find a spot, settle into his rhythm, and then let the other speed run away from him, and then hopefully that leaves you with a nice inviting slot to kind of slide into there. And so yeah, you're just you're going to be at the mercy of how everybody else does, and in terms of that stalking type trip, I would think that Bullard is probably the other one that maybe wants to have that type of trip where he doesn't want the lead, but he doesn't want to be far away. And so, yeah, you hope that maybe if you can be too wide by the time you are midway around that first of 3 turns, I think you would certainly sign up for that.
Yeah, right. In the ideal scenario, you sort of slide into like 5th, a couple lanes back, but by yourself. Have everybody else be a couple lanes behind you.
Exactly. Make sure you use your blinker, and then they should let you merge, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's how it always works, right? Yeah. Well, it's an intriguing race. Going to be fun to see how the $1 million Charlestown Classic plays out. The other storyline here, I think, is you got the last 3 winners squaring off, Banishing and Skippy.
The 3rd time in race history that we've had past winners squaring off.
Okay.
And that was Something Awesome and Imperative one year. And I think that I'm trying to remember, neither one of them ended up winning. And then it would have been, I think, Imperative again and Stanford. Imperative and Stanford would have been the second iteration of that, of horses that had already won the Classic and then squared off again. So this is arguably the best, the 2 runners with the highest expectations coming into that race. I know that Something Awesome, he was kind of a little bit dismissed in his subsequent start even after winning the race, and kind of the same could be said for Imperative. But yeah, there's a couple of runners that I think are showing up with really live shots, and I think it shapes up to be a really intriguing showdown for sure. And yeah, so you have Skippy trying to become the first 3-time winner of the race, Banishing looking to become the 5th 2-time winner of the race. So yeah, a little bit of something for all kinds of different angles to follow. And we also talked earlier in the week, we have a couple of horses that are on the cusp of being millionaires, obviously Barbadian Runner being one of those. And then earlier on in the card, Irish Maxima and the Pink Ribbon as well, and probably some others that I haven't even looked at in that. So yeah, a lot of different angles to follow along with on Friday night.
Yeah, and one last thought on the Classic. Since last year's Classic, Skippylongstocking won the Grade 1 Pegasus, Banishing won the Group 2 Godolphin Mile, and Willy D's won his first graded stake, Grade 3. So seems to flatter last year's Classic that a bunch of these horses come back and run good races. Let's talk about the Oaks a little bit. That's the race before. So the Classic is race 11, projected post 1025. Would not set my watch by that. Then the Oaks is race 10. This race feels a little maybe more top heavy to me. Like there's 3 or 4 in here, but probably not 6 or 7. Is that how you see it?
I'd even maybe take it a step further and say that I see a top heavy 1 or 2, and then everybody else. I have no clue, 0 clue who's going to be the 3rd choice, but I'm fairly certain who the top 2 choices are going to be, and that's Love Your Neighbor and At a Premium. And we were talking a little bit off camera that was going back and forth on Love Your Neighbor versus At a Premium. How much are people going to favor the hometown filly, give her the advantage versus more nationally known connections and a filly with a really good resume. And ultimately that was what the deciding factor was. Love Your Neighbor is a really, really good filly, and I think that At a Premium happens to be too, though. So At a Premium maybe a little inconvenienced by the post. You could also argue that at least now that you're going to be kept in the clear for a filly that's never taken dirt in her life. It doesn't appear that that's going to be a scenario that she's going to have to face here in the Oaks. It's just going to be a question of pace for her, and then obviously a question of trip for Love Your Neighbor, having to negotiate the turns and everything that we've talked about coming along with that. And then it's like after those 2, to me, you could probably talk me into just about 8 of the 9, or I guess in this case 6 of the 7 other horses. They all kind of look like on their day, they could jump up there and run a race that looks like what other horses have been running in this race.
It seems like to me the challenge for At a Premium here may be there's speed. There's some speed in this race to her. Obviously, everybody's to her inside just about, but if she wants the front, she's gonna have to work for it, I would think.
I agree with that. And in talking to David Walters, so I talked to the Walters brothers as well this week. David is kind of hoping that maybe some of these out-of-town riders, that maybe they, I don't want to say fall asleep, but that they lack the aggressiveness, to maybe really be on the engine early on, and that maybe At a Premium would be able to beat them to the punch because of her familiarity with the bull ring and all that comes along with that. And so again, it's he's not saying that's going to happen. That's again, clearly, I guess you probably hope that none of the other gates open and just yours does, and then you just that I guess that's technically best case scenario. But after that, he's kind of hoping that maybe that's how things might shake out. And we certainly have seen that be an epidemic around the country as well when it comes to lack of aggression in some of these races. I know you hear that a common refrain up at Saratoga, kind of just ceding the lead to these horses. And so we'll see how that plays out. But you're 100% right. It is a race that looks like it does have some speed, and so I think that if you're going, in my opinion, that heads-up matchup between Love Your Neighbor versus At a Premium, I do think that you probably have to give that edge to Love Your Neighbor, who's shown that she can stalk, that she can close, and it could end up kind of setting up really perfectly for her.
Yeah, that's kind of how it looks to me. Although the other thing I would say that, you're mentioning maybe horses will take back or whatever, but the other thing too is Barbosa's been riding out there, which means he's been riding 4.5 furlong races, and if you do that, you know how to get a horse out of there and get them running right away. And that's the other possibility, I suppose, is that they just say, well, yeah, it's a cheap Charles Town horse. We'll let her go. And if they do, she may not come back to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I know going with all kinds of cliches this episode, Frank, you'll have to excuse me, but I know the one of the popular ones.
Maybe we'll call it that, the cliche episode.
Charlestown classic cliche. That's more alliteration for me. Yay. They say that time only matters if you're serving it. And so, I say that, in regards to At a Premium, but her two races back when she was, just about a half second off of Lucy's Bob Boy's track record. Yeah. I know that the track was really fast that week, really around that whole period, that time period. It's been a weird year with us where we've had a lot of rain. And so I think we've had to kind of keep the track probably a little bit tighter. But that being said, if she's able to, go that 23, maybe 22 and changed 45, she goes 117. That was for 6.5 furlongs. She might be able to gallop out that last 16th and still not have these fillies get to her. She could just be that good. That's the beauty of this, is that we don't know. And we hope that at the end of the night on Friday that we will have an answer to just how good she is. And obviously, again, it's one of those things where I can't, openly not going to be rooting for her on the microphone, but just know that, I'm a Charlestown guy through and through. I'm a fan of the Walters family. And so I will leave it at that.
You're listening to Frank Vespi and Charlestown track announcer Paul Espinosa on Midlantic Racing Today, really powered by the Racing Biz and presented by Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races.
A number of these, so we'll see. Can she carry it? It's going to be a fun test, I think, and you hopefully she'll run a good race, win or lose, and make everybody happy. So, all right, that's the Oaks. We got the Hilton and the Pink Ribbon. I don't know which way you want to go here. Where you want to start?
We'll keep working backwards from Classic to Oaks to Hilton, and we kind of already touched on the elephant in the room of Solitude Dude. Clearly, I have him the morning line favorite, pretty significant favorite, and if he runs in this race, he has probably at least 3 races, and maybe 4 that are just better than what anybody else has run in this race. He's the most likely winner by far if he runs in this race. He's, I'd say, probably still unlikely to win up at Saratoga, but it's, do you take your chances with that field, coming up a little bit lighter? We'll find out. The one thing that also makes it interesting is that Saffie Joseph has 3 runners in this race, and so he would have 2 others if he was to scratch Solitude Dude. Both those horses, I think they're kind of, in the mix. If Solitude Dude comes out, I think that it becomes a very evenly matched race. So it's just going to come down to that decision, different ownership. So there's that in our favor, where it's like, if I see where Solitude Dude cost $300,000, he's made $350,000. The winner's share of this purse would be $300,000. So you basically you double up your initial investment already if you were to capture the Hilton. I don't have a lot else in terms of like insight. This is just, I could see this one going either way. So but obviously it does make it tougher to handicap. You pretty much have to handicap 2 separate races, one with him in it, one with him out. So.
And as a handicapper, we hate that.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right. And as you say, if he comes out, you make a much stronger case for local runner Ryan's Run without Solitude Dude than you can with Solitude Dude. What do you make of him in this spot? Obviously, the speed fig's a little light for this group, but they're not terribly light, excluding Solitude Dude. They don't compare to him at all.
I concur with that. Again, seeing At a Premium with a 91 and an 87 buyer versus Ryan's Run last time out, getting the 83 going in his 2-turn debut. We obviously had that 89 going 4.5. That's a little bit kind of apples to oranges. My thing about Ryan's Run is that I would think that this is the race that we see his best, whatever it is. I think that last time there was still that little bit of a question mark, first time stretching out, doing it in stakes company. and he obviously passed that test. He wasn't asked at all in that race. And so I know you can get in trouble kind of, forecasting, well, how much more, if Boca Chica had asked him, how much more could he have given? You'd like to think the answer is at least a little bit more, but sometimes I know that can get, you can get lost in the weeds there, I guess, a little bit, going down that rabbit hole too much. But yeah, I think that, he's another one that has the, how much do you swing it in his favor because of the hometown angle, and having that advantage of having been over the track and already done this exact trip before. Again, I'm reluctant to say like no shot, just because again I feel like this is going to be the race where we will see what his best is. And so, if we haven't seen that yet, then, certainly they're going to be hoping that that's the case, that there is something more left in the tank, but it's going to have to be really good. Like we said, I don't think anybody's race is good enough to be Solitude dudes if he shows up. But I think that you could make the case that he could beat anybody else in this field. That wouldn't shock me in the least.
Yeah. And, I feel like these are connections you can really trust. Runco doesn't make a habit of showing up in races where he can't win or be competitive. And he's very good. I feel like he's really, really good at getting a horse to peak. And if this is the one he wants, you can probably assume this horse will run as well as he's capable of running.
I agree. You said it perfectly. And again, the dependability factor, you very rarely, I feel like, see the inexplicable off the board performances from Runco types. If they're doing well, they're going to typically run their race, and if they're not doing well, they typically aren't going to be in the race. So yeah, that's all I feel like you can ask for as a horse player, is just that consistency, that dependability, and you get that obviously close to 5,000 times with Mr. Runco.
Yeah. That's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. One other horse we should just touch on briefly is Bravaro. He's kind of intriguing to me. He's been the beaten favorite his last couple. He was beaten 2 lengths in the Wood Memorial, and while the speed figure doesn't tell you anything there, that's a race that produced the first and second place finishers in the Preakness, and the third place finisher beating a couple eyelashes in the Kentucky Derby. So that has come back as a productive heat.
100%. He also exits the race that produced the winner of last year's Robert Hilton Memorial, and I might get this pronunciation wrong, but the Petramalo Mile. I don't know.
Petramalo.
Yeah. Petramalo. Oh gosh, I'm glad it's not a Charlestown race. Oh, that would have been brutal. But yeah, because obviously Barbadian Runner ran in that race last year. He's a horse that makes a lot of sense. And again, that's one of the things where it's like, if you're Safi, you have a horse like Bravaro, you have a horse like Langvad. A couple of horses, Langvad is actually probably a little bit faster than Bravaro from a speed figure standpoint. The running lines, those certainly favor Bravaro in that comparison. So you have 2 live chances, even if you scratch Solitude Dude. A nice position to be in, certainly for Mr. Safi. But yeah, it's that's a fascinating race if Solitude Dude comes out, and I think should be a fun race to watch. I would think if Solitude Dude, he'd certainly be a single and many pick 6 tickets if he stays in, and then if not, people are going to have to spread a little bit more in this race, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, this could be a free square if he stays in, handicapping wise. All right, let's look at the pink ribbon here, the race before. What a fun group this is. You got Mystic Lake, a 2-time winner at Charlestown, who's made $1.6 million. You got Irish Maxima, grade 2 winner, making a run at $1 million. And then Foie Gras, who is an interesting horse here, multiple graded stakes place, might be sitting the trip.
Yeah, it's this race came up really nice. I feel like we talked about, we've had some really top quality mares in this race, fillies and mares in this race last couple of years. We had Vava versus Mystic Lake last year. We had Society the year before that. It's been a race for horses that ran well in the Oaks. If they stay in training, you can typically hope to see them in this race. It just so happens that the last 2 Oaks winners are both Safi Joseph trainees, and so he's just going to send Mystic Lake. Otherwise I think that Indy Bay would have also made a lot of sense for this race. But yeah, I think that Irish Maxima, she's obviously razor sharp right now. It sounds like she might have left her race her best race maybe in the paddock of the Dashing
Beauty.
Oh,
yes, she did.
I was going to say you were there that day. And so if you can kind of draw a line through that speed figure, she still calls on her class and gets the win. But, she's riding this 4-race winning streak, including a win in the Grade 2 Ruffian. I think that she would make a lot of sense in here. It sounds like that is your opinion of her as well.
Yeah, I think you can absolutely speed figure wise draw a line through that. She was spooking at everything. She reared up a couple times. They couldn't get the saddle on her. And it's also notable that she sat off the pace, which is unusual for her. Usually she wants to be the pace. And she still won. Plenty of back class there to beat that group of horses. So I think it was it's a better effort than the speed figure would tell you. The interesting thing to me though, last year when Mystic Lake beat Vava, Mystic Lake was really the only horse that wanted the front. It was a 4-horse field. She controlled the pace. Nobody could get to her. Not going to be that easy to get to the front in this group. There's a bunch of horses that like to be up front, which is as I sort of previewed, sort of pointing me to take a long look at Foie Gras, who I think is going to take back off them and maybe pounce late.
I would concur with that assessment that's probably what my rider instructions would be to Ricardo Santana Jr. I'm sure their connection is very happy that I'm not the one giving those instructions, but she was a filly that I guess I kind of, has gotten lost in the shuffle for me. And it was when I started handicapping this race where I was like, this is a really nice filly. I mean, I think that she has a chance to be really good. I think she has a graded stakes win in her future sometime, and she does have that versatility where she can definitely let these leaders kind of tear away here. And so, yeah, I think that Irish Maxima obviously wants to be close, and Carino wants to be close. That's going to be an interesting one because Mystic Lake obviously does two. You have the two fillies with the same style in Anna Karina and Mystic Lake for Saffie Joseph. The Matt Shire horse, Overcome Adversity, was a speedball last time at Ellis, and maybe she actually kind of needs to be ridden with some aggression. So yeah, I'm with you. There should be no free rides in this race, and if so, then you'll get those same complaints about riders being passive that we've talked about, and because that's the only way that this race doesn't cook up front, it feels like.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. So it should be fun to see there. I've got a couple other things I want to just chat about briefly, but do you have some stuff you'd like to bring up?
I think we touched on most of the big stuff there. Those are the four main open races. Obviously, we have one earlier on the card, a little overnight stake, the Shannondoa, which came up nice. I know you might want to chat a little bit more about that, but yeah, it's just going to be a fun night. We're expecting maybe the biggest crowd ever for the Charles Town Classic Festival. Over 20 food trucks, lots of great live entertainment. I think there are going to be 4 bands. Going to be just a great night to be out at the track, and a real chance to kind of feel like if you're a racing fan, or maybe just even a passive fan, it's going to be a night that kind of, I think hopefully brings back some good nostalgia of, what it was like when people came out to the races for a nice evening of fun. And so certainly just hoping that is the case. But yeah, that's, I think we pretty much touched on everything else that I was thinking about.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Shannondoa. That's one of the overnight stakes, and it's the other open stake. It's $50,000 race, so of course you have a grade 1 placed runner in there.
Makes sense. That's as you would certainly expect. Right. Yeah, the wine steward. Again, I would think that Anthony Ferrier, local trainer. I'd imagine he was probably hoping that Faster Gator being in that race, being a horse that has won here at Charlestown, might scare some people off from this little $50,000 stake. Not the case. Mike Maker says, yeah, I'm sending a couple, and the wine steward's going on the van too. And so I think that's a really fascinating showdown between those two, because I do think Faster Gator he's a legit horse. And so you add that, to the fact that he is speed. Hammer is speed. Pork Chop Pete is speed. It's another race that Midnight Show, the Mountaineer horse, he's speed. It's a race that looks like it should have plenty of pace on paper, and that could kind of swing things in the wine steward's favor. Again, he's a horse that clearly has danced a lot of dances and danced them well. And so definitely going to be a race to kind of get the juices flowing early in the card for me, where it's like, again, I think we have 9 stakes races of the 13. And so, typically those are going to be the last 9 races on the card. We move this one up a little bit in the card, just with it being the 7-horse field, because we do have some pretty good field sizes in the rest of the races. But yeah, this is a race that will be very exciting to see how it.
You're listening to Frank Vespi and Charles Town track announcer Paul Espinosa on Midlantic Racing Today. Powered by the Racing Biz and presented by Hollywood Casino at Charles Town Races.
What anybody else here has done. And Faster Gator's a nice horse, but I mean, his horse was second a half length in the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity. Nobody else here has done anything like that, but he's entering off a couple of kind of off-color races and hasn't raced since February. So that might open things up. It is and then you get a horse like Pork Chop Pete, who you mentioned, who's been running mostly at 4.5. So should be fun. That race, seeing the Wine Steward was a little bit of a what's going on here moment. So
yeah.
And speaking of what's going on here moments, Duncan, Idaho, gelded.
And I'm glad we get a chance to talk about this. So I actually went down and I was chatting with Jeff in general, because I felt like I had noticed that he had been leaving a number of his more horses than he had been intact, meaning that he had not been gelding them. Well, come to find out, they all had been gelded. It had just been a, racing at its finest moment, somehow lost in the shuffle. I don't know who to apply the blame to, but he is not a new gelding. Again, that is it's an unfortunate thing, and one of the it's a bummer. Certainly going to hope to try to get the word out about that, because you would think about I just kind of assumed too. It's like, oh well, he's the one, Colt, obviously Muad'Dib. He didn't, maybe whenever he was gelded, he maybe didn't know just how good this family was going to be, and so I just kind of thought Duncan Idaho, oh, maybe they're going to keep him intact just to actually be like a nice stallion that people would look forward to breeding to. Nope, he's been gelded long ago. And Jeff Jeff's thinking in that, not to kind of spill too much of the tea, he feels like it kind of helps keep these horses a little bit more lean. They don't get as muscle bound, and so that's not obviously what you probably want at a bull ring, where you probably do want to kind of more sleek and athletic. And so anyway, yep. Unfortunately, nothing crazy going on there. Just regular old Duncan Idaho, just really fast Duncan Idaho. So,
well, and you said he keeps him lean. That horse plenty big enough, regardless.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, good. Racing being racing. Of course, he's been gelded. I was stunned when I saw that. Given he's 7,
exactly.
As good as he's been, I was like, man, what's going on with that? So thank you for breaking the news that the gelding isn't new.
Yeah, I'm actually going to check too, by the way, now that I think about it. I just want to double check. Okay, so yes, it does show Ryan's run. He was reported as a gelding prior to his right after his first start, I guess. So yes, that was also the case where I believe that he was. So I wasn't sure if he was one of the other ones that had kind of slipped through the cracks, because there was I think Penguin's Pride was one of those other ones that slipped through the cracks as well, that was a gelding all along, but I think he might show up whenever he races next as a first-time gelding, even though that's not the case. So, yep. Love this game, don't we?
It is something else, man. You can't make up the stuff that this game happens in this game. So what's this day going to be like for you? What does Paul Espinosa do on the biggest day of the year? Obviously calling races, but do you do anything special to prepare, or is it just another day preparation wise? I mean, how do you go about this?
So it's interesting. This is definitely the week where I'm, doing the rounds on social media and different podcasts and stuff like that. And so the lead up to it is definitely a blur. Thursday morning, I'm on the backstretch with our social media team, and we kind of do a meet and greet with all the different horses, all the major players, and then obviously call races that night. So Friday is there's a little bit of the calm before the storm. I'll probably get a quick workout in and just to hopefully blow off some steam and keep things as regular as possible. And then that's sort of the day when I finally I actually feel like I have some time to focus on my actual job, or then all this stuff is my job, but like the part of my job that I actually really enjoy, which is and not to, oh man, I'm sorry, Frank. I'm sorry oh man, I realized.
There you go.
Yeah. No, and it's not that I don't enjoy chatting with you.
No, I understand. You're a track announcer. It's what you want to do. I get it.
I'm up there in that booth all alone, and that's the people that I like to work with is me. So, no. But anyway,
all your friends.
Exactly. So yes, that is the night that I feel like leading up to that, where I can kind of finally just focus on calling races, the things that, maybe you want to look out for. You don't want to over prepare to the point where you are, anticipating something, but you just want to be prepared for, sure, whatever happens. If, even if Solitude Dude is in the race, if he misses the break, what happens then? And, you get to, luckily there's a little bit more time in between races where you do get a chance to kind of breathe. But yeah, it's, I've said this before. I know it's sort of an Olympic type feel for us, where it's if you screw up, you got to wait a whole another year to make up for it. So you just obviously hope that you can get through that and not have to live with that for a full year. And then maybe above all else, I just hope that the people that win these races, I hope that they're able to be excited. I hope they're able to watch the replay and not hit the mute button. If they do, that's fine. I don't care about it, but I just hope that I don't take away from their moment. And I hope that, I know for me, when I watch races back, some of my favorite races of all time, a lot of that does come from the call of the announcers, many of those obviously being Tom Durkin. And so, yeah, you just hope that you don't take away from the moment that, and if you're fortunate enough to add to it a little bit, that's great. But for the most part, let the horses be the story. And that's what I will try to do again for all 13 of them on Friday night.
Yeah. One of the cool things I think about that night is usually the connections are all there. And so it definitely has that kind of big game feel, and they are always, like Safi's team just gets so excited when they win a big race, and that's cool to see. I mean, it's I can't stand like these kids. You get these trainers or owners, and they've won 1 trillion races and $1 billion and whatever, and they're just, yes, it's very nice that we won this race. Celebrate a little. That's what this game's about. If you can't be happy when you're winning, you can't be happy. So
I agree. Yep, that's well said. And yeah, I think that letting it out a little bit, and I think the crowd and the atmosphere kind of will bring that out of people as well. Where it's it's going to be loud down the stretch of these races, and so you've got to be loud to match them. And so yeah, it's should be a lot of fun. And again, to this day, the kind of the most emotional I've ever gotten after a race was after running to Love Ya, because there was this, you could just hear it. It was just different outside of the glass. I could hear the joy, the genuine joy. I know that you were there that day as well. And so the idea too of allowing yourself to think about these local angles that have a chance to produce some really great feelings, some really great emotions in a lot of different people. It's exciting. And so, yeah, just obviously hope for safe trips, good trips for everybody, and let may the best horses win.
All right. Well, Paul Espinosa, sounds good. Good luck on Friday. Hope you have fun all week getting ready and making the rounds and all that stuff, even though it's not your favorite part of your job. We understand that. But, good luck Friday. Have fun. We'll see you out there.
All right. Sounds good, Frank. I appreciate it.
Thanks to Paul Espinosa, and thanks most of all to you for watching, listening, and we hope liking and subscribing to Midlantic Racing Today. Midlantic Racing Today, powered by the Racing Biz, theracingbiz.com. And today's episode, Charlestown Races Today, is presented by our friends at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. We will have more episodes of Midlantic Racing Today, including one of Delaware Park today, coming up a bit later this week. In the meantime, you got some handicapping to do if you're going to play Charlestown on Friday night, a 13 race program, so you can get to it. We'll have plenty of coverage on the racingbiz.com. My name's Frank Vespi. This has been Midlantic Racing Today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.